Welcome back, guys. I'm Dobby.
And I'm Alan.
This is Taking the Charge. So, taking it back to last Saturday as the start of our games, let's go through what the best games of the week were. And obviously on Saturday, the big matchup between was the Nets and the Warriors. The Curry was really taking the charge with, his team and so forth, and they looked pretty good going into that game. And the Nets were kind of coming off of a shaky week as far as that is concerned. KD was in and out of the lineup.
Yeah, he didn't have him playing a lot with I don't know what they were doing, whether it was COVID or they said it was COVID, then it wasn't, and let him play and then didn't. It was a lot of
Yeah, it was a lot of confusion as far as that goes. But again, they were coming off an up and down week, and I think they really made a statement game over the Warriors right there. It was pretty, one-sided for the most part. They dominated, put up a 134 in regulation.
Oh, for sure.
Just a really great game overall by the Nets. And then they kind of took that into the week as far as that's concerned. We'll get more into how they played out during the week and so forth as we get along with the show. But then looking over to Monday's games, really great game there between Philly and the Jazz. The Jazz once again putting their foot down as the best team in the league.
Exactly. They're by far the best team in the league right now. They're looking the most cohesive, and they're getting it done on the court.
Yeah, for 100%. Donovan Mitchell. And then we will get into the All-Star game and stuff like that. He did not make the starters in the West. That was kind of surprising.
Insane. Ridiculous.
Yeah, unheard of.
Unheard. Absolutely.
Absolutely unheard of, he says.
Yeah.
Go looking over to Wednesday night's slate, and man, they had some really great games that night as far as I'm concerned. But definitely the one that we have to talk about to start it off is the Heat versus the Warriors. And man, it was just a rough week for the Heat, I feel like, in general. But really, that game, when they had such a big lead over the Warriors for, I feel like, most of that game, and then, once again, they just couldn't close against a game where they should have won.
Yeah, I feel like they don't have that last piece like they did last year. They had the Jay Crowder and Derrick Jones Jr. to play great defense at the end of the game in the stretch.
Yeah, down the stretch. Just to come in, for a little bit and really, play defensively. And it wasn't even, I felt like Curry that game. It wasn't even him taking over. And then at the end of the game, you let it somehow slip into overtime, and Curry's going to do what Curry does. Hits clutch threes, and you really couldn't do anything to stop that.
He's doing things unheard of. Absolutely unheard
Absolutely.
of.
Just insane play by Curry down the stretch. But again, just one of those things that, how can you count out Curry in the clutch? But that wasn't
the best.
That wasn't even the only game that night. That was a really good game as far as I'm concerned, because we had the Blazers versus the Pelicans. This was a game that was tied up really late. Zion was coming down pretty clutch, I felt like, towards the end there. But I don't know if you caught it, but on that last possession, they ended up just shooting a crazy shot. They had about 8 to 10 seconds on their last possession for the Pelicans.
So they pulled a Shaq and full Draymond.
Basically, but it wasn't even they took some kind of stupid shot. It was just the ball didn't end up. It ended up in Lonzo's hands. Lonzo took the game basically winning three. And of all the players in the court, you have Zion, who's dominated for most of this game to this point.
And you have Brandon Ingram, one of the brightest young players.
Right, and the ball ends
potentially a KD-esque build, talent-wise.
Exactly.
And Zion Williamson, who in my opinion is the young face of the NBA.
Yeah,
John Moran,
and you let Lonzo shoot the three, and Lonzo's not a terrible player, but I think it's pretty well known to this point.
You put the ball in the best player's hands at that.
Yeah, you give it to your best player, and you don't let somebody who is iffy from three anyways take that kind of shot.
Like Caruso.
Yeah, like Caruso. And we'll get more into that game as we get through. But obviously, coming down now to last night's games. And we had, by the way, I forgot to mention, on Thursday it was the Nets versus the Lakers. That was a big game that everybody was, highly anticipated, wanted to see, KD and all them. KD didn't play for that game, by the way. He was out that game, but James Harden and then Kyrie Irving did what they had to do, and they beat the Lakers.
They got it. They beat them easily, I would say. It wasn't a close game. It didn't come down to the last couple possessions. It was done by a minute left in the fourth.
Which is surprising, because we really thought the Lakers would just kind of walk away with this one, and it was just a very impressive week for the Nets.
With KD not playing. Who's guarding LeBron out there? Who's guarding Anthony Davis? You don't have a lot of height on the Brooklyn Nets. You got DeAndre Jordan, but he's an older person. He's not as athletic as some of the people on the Lakers and young.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a great game regardless, though. But yeah, the Nets definitely put down their foot and make a statement game for sure. And then so Saturday's games, we had the Heat and the Lakers. We talked about it last week going into this one, that this was one of the matchups to, really watch the real finals rematch, the first game they played since then. And the Heat, Kuzma had, had them on the ropes late again. Just another one of those games where can the Heat close it out? And they did. They ended up winning the ball.
Time.
The ball ended up in Caruso's hands. LeBron passed to Caruso for the game winner. What are your thoughts on that?
I hate everything about that decision. He's not even remotely anywhere near the best shooter on the team. He can't get it done in ISO ball situations. He's not that one-on-one player that can just score whenever he needs to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, again, LeBron. You're LeBron James.
You have LeBron on your team.
Why are you
double team, triple team? It doesn't matter. If he really wants to score, he's gonna get it done.
I mean, the smart play, you pass to the open man, but at the end of the day, you're LeBron James. You can make anything on the floor, I feel like. But it is what it is. But that wasn't even the best game of the night. Best game of the night had to be the Hornets versus the Warriors.
Scary Terry.
Scary Terry. We'll talk about him a little bit more later too. What a week he had. But Draymond Green, and this is a big game moment that we listed as well. I mean,
he's overrated.
2 technical fouls.
Overrated. He's more of a emotional leader at this point. He's not putting up the numbers he did. Not doing what he needs to do to get the Warriors win. So
and I mean, that's great, and I'll call him emotional leader. But how can you have your emotional leader falter away towards the end there and get 2 technical fouls that not only bring them back in the game, but then set them up because now they get the ball after 2 free throws and they hit the game winner with Terry Rozier. That's just terrible leadership.
I don't think the second technical should have been called personally. The game's physical at the end of the day, and they were just trying to fight for the possession. I think he got a clean jump ball or whatever you want to call it.
I mean that's definitely fair to say. But again,
in
it's
that
just not a guy.
You can't even put yourself in that position, being who you are, being Draymond Green, because he's known to get fouls and refs are going to call it different. Like DeMarcus Cousins when he was on Sacramento, he had led the league in technical fouls for 3 or 4 years.
It's just as a leader, you can't act like that.
You can't have that.
Best stat lines of the week, though, definitely Nikola Jokic, 23, 16, and 10 over a win over not only that, but just over the Lakers Sunday. Really great game. Jimmy Butler this week had 3 straight triple-doubles. And, Russ definitely devalued how we look at triple-doubles in the league today.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Just because he gets them so often, it's a different way to look at it. But Jimmy Butler being the player he is, getting 3 straight triple-doubles, it's definitely a feat.
We were saying free Bradley. Maybe free Jimmy if they can't find a way to get some more wins.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I'm just saying.
That's a little
free Jimmy buckets. You heard it here first.
Alan's being a little blasphemous today, but whatever. Totally different situations. One went to the finals last year. The other's at the bottom of the barrel of the league.
What are they looking like this year, though?
Okay. We'll get more into that in a second here, Alan, when we talk about the Heat. But Jimmy Butler is absolutely fine where he is with the Miami Heat. Let's make that clear right now. You know, Alan? Whatever. Could care less. Anyways, going into it too, Jordan Clarkson dropped 40 off the bench in a win. That's 40 by Clarkson, nonetheless.
Unheard of.
Absolutely. What a great game from him.
Insane.
Julius Randle, we said to look out for him last week when we were talking about players to watch. 44, 9, and 5. Definitely fantastic all-around performance by Randle and the Knicks. They just keep looking better and better as the season goes.
If he could stay healthy and their young players develop how they need to, Michael Robinson, R.J. Barrett, players like that. Obi Toppin finally does something. I think the Knicks could potentially be a playoff team.
I think they could too.
Especially in a weak Eastern Conference.
Yeah. Sabonis with 36, 17, and 10 against the Wolves. In overtime, great game by him all around. Sabonis, I don't think he gets enough credit either. He's one of those players.
Yeah, he definitely is. He's a back to the basket type of face-up four. You're not going to see him shoot a lot of threes.
He does shoot a lot of threes, Alan.
Oh, what, he does?
Yes, he's a great three-point shooter.
I don't see him shoot.
You said the same thing about Vucevic last week, and I have to
no. Vucevic only shot 12 threes last week. Let's keep it G.
Okay. Whatever you want to say,
I looked it up because you corrected me. Thank you.
Okay. Anyways, on Friday, Vucevic, 30, 16, and 10 over the Warriors. Again, he was another player we said to watch out for. He's been absolutely fantastic. But, of course, the performance alone of the week.
He is him. I'm telling y'all now. He's been it for years.
Oh.
Don't let the team fool you. Vucevic is really like that.
No, I agree, 100%. Absolutely. But on Friday, Jamal Murray might have put in the single best performance of the week, dropping 50 points on 21 of 25 shooting, 8 from 10 from 3.
No more Bubble Murray. He's solidified himself as a top point guard in this league, in my opinion. Or if you want to call him a shooting guard, because Jokic is basically the point center. I mean, he breaks the ball, of course, sometimes. He's their facilitator. He makes everything happen on the team. But Jamal Murray putting up 50s.
Yeah.
Unheard of.
Absolutely. So Terry Rozier dropped 40 in the game winner. We already know about that. Just an absolutely great performance from Terry Rozier, capping off this week. So let's talk about some of the other big game moments of the week that we haven't already discussed. So the Clippers ended up beating the Heat this week without Kawhi Leonard or Paul George.
Free Jimmy.
We're not freeing Jimmy, making it clear again, but the Heat, again, the inability to get it done against teams that are missing players too, obviously, at this point.
Star players, like... Who do they have other than Kawhi and Paul George? They're a solid team. They're more like a Bulls without them, though.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. And then when you talk about it, it's just, why can't this team that was in the finals last year close out games that they were last year, by the way?
Exactly. They were closing out games in the playoffs and in the regular season.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's changed is a couple players on the bench, but I feel like those players played great roles, especially against, like, the Bucks last year with Jay Crowder and Derrick Jones Jr. being able to lock Giannis down, essentially.
Yeah, no, I mean, I absolutely agree
from that standpoint. Those players anymore, trading them and Jay Crowder going to free agency.
Yeah. And how about, again, when we talked about Jordan Clarkson dropping 40 off the bench, in that same game against the Sixers, Simmons had 42, 9, and 12. Harris had 36 and 10, and they still ended up losing to this guy off the bench. That's kind of crazy in my eyes, you know what I mean, to have a team that's been as good as the Sixers have this year, and then to put up numbers like that.
Especially with the MVP on them, on their arguable MVP, I will say, but he's Joel Embiid.
Yeah, and I mean, we got to talk about how Embiid has, right now, as it stands, the best PER ever in league history.
And PER, for those who are casual fans, is player efficiency rating. They basically add up all your stats and who your matchup is and going against and how much they have compared to how much you have and give you a overall score, whether it's +5, -5, or whatever you want to put it at.
Yeah. Another thing that happened this week, too, Jimmy Butler and Bam, when they did finally stop the bleeding and end the losing streak because they went on a 3-game skid, Butler and Bam both, we don't see it very often. They had triple-doubles in the same game. I thought that this was an incredible performance. Tyler Hero had 27 that same game, too. That looked like the Heat that I knew from last year.
Man, I like Tyler Hero, but he's just not... Kendrick Nunn, though. Kendrick Nunn's
playing late,
He's been playing really well this week.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you right there. And then we had the Clippers who kind of asserted themselves over the Jazz. We've been talking about how much the Jazz are the number 1 team in the league.
Kawhi played that game.
Yeah, Kawhi played that game.
He was phenomenal that game. Unheard of.
Yep, and then we already talked about Rozier with the game winner over the, Draymond and the Warriors with the double text. Just terrible. Heat getting revenge on the Lakers. And shout out to Chris Paul, who now has moved up to 6th all-time on the assist leaderboard. Now, getting into player of the week, my player of the week, Alan, I'm not sure about yours,
That's
but
definitely them.
I went with Terry Rozier.
Only option. The only other option I could see right there is like Jokic. The Denver Nuggets lost 1 game this week.
Did they?
Yeah.
Wow. Impressive performance.
And he's putting up good numbers every single night in, night out. He's basically a point guard version, a more facilitator version of Joel Embiid, in my opinion. Besides the defense, I will say he doesn't play as great a defense, but he puts up great numbers still.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely my front runner for MVP to this point. Again, Terry Rozier, 31.8 points per game over the last 5 games, 4.6 rebounds, 3.6 assists. The best part about it, though, is how efficient he's been. 57% shooting just from the field, 55% from 3 during that stretch. Definitely my player of the week.
He's putting up Curry numbers.
Right.
From the 3 right now, and I mean, it's unheard of. So,
all right.
Never done before.
So, Alan, tell us about some of the injuries that happened this week.
You got KD, he's out for 4 games. The hamstring injury, but you seen him, he's coming back to the lineup probably tomorrow, Monday.
Yeah.
So, Otto Porter's still out, Lauri Markkanen still out. The Bulls are on and off struggling. They look good some nights, and Zach LaVine's closing pretty well for them, but I don't think they're just getting it done as a cohesive unit to win enough games to make the playoffs, make a push in the playoffs.
Yeah, Wiseman's still out with his wrist injury. Last week, I think you said it had to do with his knee. That was absolutely wrong, but Wiseman is still out. Christian Wood and Oladipo still out for a little bit. Oladipo might come back sometime this week, though.
I love Oladipo. He's so humble. Oh, listen to that new R&B album.
Oladipo?
Yeah, he does. He sings.
Oh, wow. I didn't know he sung.
Yeah.
Dragic, Avery Bradley still out for the Heat. And then D'Angelo Russell out 4 to 6 weeks now. This is his timetable for his return. And to close us all out, obviously, Anthony Davis, probably the biggest headline of the week as far as injuries are concerned. He is out at least 4 weeks with an Achilles injury. no tears or anything like that, so he won't be out too long.
Probably just strain, something like that. But
yeah,
definitely got to take your time with something as far as an Achilles injury goes, because tear your Achilles, it's a whole season, maybe more. You've seen it happen multiple times with Kobe, Kevin Durant, a lot of players. Paul George is the glaring example of that with the compound fracture.
Yeah, and
a lot of players aren't the same after that. So
McCollum is also out for 2 weeks, and then they reevaluated on his foot injury. So let's get into power rankings and talk about biggest risers and biggest fallers from this week's power rankings. So at number 1, we're still going to have the Utah Jazz for sure. I mean, they've just still been the number 1 team, even if the Clippers beat them this week. But that's why the Clippers do move up on this list. The Nets probably the biggest riser this week in terms of best teams. They come in at number 6 on our list. Phenomenal week by them. I believe they pulled out a 5-game win streak.
Even without KD being there, they still have 2 lethal offensive threats. And with James Harden, he can score whenever he wants, draws fouls anytime. He knows how to work the refs and work the game. He's a true student of the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then the Warriors fell down our list a little bit just because they had kind of an up and down week this week, but they still look pretty good with Curry leading the pack there. The Grizzlies also one of the biggest rises this week. The return of John Morant, that kind of has been understated a little bit. He went crazy this week.
No, he's insane. He's doing things that are unheard of. He's insane. I mean, he's their leader right now as being a young player, as young as he is. I think he's 21, 22 maybe. I'm not even sure, but being that young and being able to lead a team and have a team be playoff contenders at that point in your career is just, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, and then the Heat also dropping down a few spots. Just a very bad start to the week. They've kind of come back now with 2 straight wins, but again, just not a very good week by the Heat. And they should be winning most of these games that they are losing. So looking at the other teams that made this list. No, free Jimmy, Alan, stop that.
Free Bam.
The Wizards move up. They are on their own little win streak as far as that's concerned. The Cavs losing 9 in a row towards the bottom of our list, but the Wizards looking a little bit better now.
Thank God, Bradley. Carry them to the promised land. And then after the season's over, get traded to the Bucks.
Never, ever. But that'll conclude our power rankings. So let's get into the rumor mill and talk about some of the signings, trade rumors, etc. So apparently, the only thing that I really heard as far as the trade front's concerned, and we're closing in on the trade deadline. We're getting closer to it.
You're definitely going to see a lot of blockbuster trades as it gets closer.
As we do get closer.
Especially with like Bradley Beal being unhappy, and there's a few other players that aren't happy with their teams currently.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll get more into that once we do get closer to the trade deadline. But as far as right now, not a lot. You hear little rumors here and there. Maybe Drummond gets moved, so forth. Blake Griffin is now on the bench. He's getting sat. Some things could happen.
Yeah, he might get signed to the Lakers. I seen it was SportsCenter posted. Adam Woj was saying if the Pistons buy out his contract, he could get picked up by the Lakers.
Yeah.
That's a huge blockbuster move. You got to think about Clippers. Blake Griffin was one of the most athletic people ever, in my opinion. You didn't see a lot of dunks coming from 6'9", 270, 280-pound men like that.
Not at all. And then the only other thing I heard this week as far as free agent signings and rumors go is that Cousins and the Rockets are expected to part ways coming up here in the next couple of days. Who do you think signs Cousins?
To be honest, I don't even know if he gets signed. I mean,
really?
he wants a lot of money. He wants starter money, but he's not producing like he needs to be or like a starter should. He's been out of shape. You can see it on him for the past couple of years. Even with LeBron last year.
Yeah.
Curry being on the Warriors, he wasn't putting up the numbers he needs to, or like the old DeMarcus.
I mean, I think it's a fair assessment as far as that goes, but there are interest from teams like the Lakers are interested, the Heat are definitely interested as far as that's concerned. Do they want someone to maybe space the floor a little bit more and just have that extra big to get boards? Like, that's somebody they desperately need. I definitely could see Cousins getting signed.
I could see him going somewhere, but, I mean, it really comes down to how much money he's willing to take. He's definitely going to have to take a pay cut. There's no way he's getting paid anywhere near what he used to get paid, even on the Warriors.
No, yeah, I mean, I agree. I guess I could see it from that standpoint. But that'll do it for the rumor mill this week. Let's talk about the All-Star game. So the starters were announced this week. The only real things that on our list that didn't really come into play here was Christian Wood obviously didn't make it. That was just more kind of like a personal choice of ours, I felt like. But I feel like the bigger news in that situation was that Donovan Mitchell didn't get in, and Luka did. I predicted this last week that Luka would get in over Donnie, and that's not to discredit anything that Donovan Mitchell's done this year, but 100% I think Luka deserves it.
I mean, I feel like Luka, he should definitely be on the All-Star team. I don't know. Starting over Donovan Mitchell, best player on the best team in the NBA. I feel like it's because he's a foreign player. He's the best player on that team, on a great team, more of like a big market team, I'd say, than more big market team than Utah. You got Mark Cuban as the owner. I mean, he's everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
And the boards, polls, all that, all the time.
Yeah.
I think he definitely deserves it.
But I think other than that, everybody that kind of made the list, I felt like pretty much deserved it. Giannis, KD, so forth. All those guys, big market players. That's kind of what it is at the end of the day, is the popularity contest.
Exactly.
But, I mean, every one of those deserved it. So, again, if you want to see our All-Star predictions and so forth, go back to last week's episode and check that out. Come back to this one.
Get a lot of these in there.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and talk about our weekly preview and some of the upcoming games, players to watch, teams to watch, and then what we expect as we wrap up the show here. So best upcoming games this week, I saw Sunday, today's game, Nets versus Clippers, definitely a headlining game. The Nets just on fire lately. The Clippers kind of asserting themselves as number 2 in the West under the Jazz. That looks to be a pretty good game.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You have a great defense, and you have Pat Bev, Kawhi, 2 great defenders on that team, and then you have the most lethal offense potentially we've ever seen in the NBA with 2 of the top 5 scorers, in my opinion, of all time. You have KD and James Harden, who are unguardable, essentially.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if KD is playing in this game. I don't think he is playing in this one. Not too sure, but if he does return, should be an absolutely stellar matchup, Kawhi versus KD, for sure.
For sure. But if not, I definitely see Kyrie getting guarded by Pat Bev. Kyrie's still going to do what Kyrie does. Put up points, drive to the rim.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie, this week, there wasn't any huge games all throughout the week that stood out to me. There might be some really good matchups and games that happen
for sure.
between teams that are kind of in the middle of the pack. But as far as the biggest name games, there was only 2 more in my eyes. Lakers Jazz Wednesday, and then Friday Blazers Lakers. Again, the Lakers making their appearances pretty prominent and known. But it's going to be a little more interesting with those 2 games.
You know what time it is on Friday.
It's Dame time?
It's Dame time. Just watch out for Dame. He's going to go for over 30 on Friday.
But again, without AD, it's going to be very interesting to see how the Lakers respond.
And you have Jurkic, ever say it?
Yeah, Joseph. I don't think he's playing right now. I think
he's not.
I think he's been injured.
Okay, but you still have Hassan.
Hassan's not there anymore.
What?
He's with the Kings.
Oh my God!
Come on, Alan.
Sorry, cut it.
Get it back.
Yusuf Nurkic.
There it is.
But and then players to watch this week coming up. Harden. That's a given.
Always.
Because they're in a big game, big spotlight. He's been playing very well recently.
He's getting a lot of touches with KD not being there this past week at least. And
yeah. Jimmy Butler's another one I put up there as well. Coming off the 3 straight triple-double performances this week. I definitely do want to see how Jimmy kind of takes the heat this week, building off of a little momentum that they have. Very interesting to see how that goes, Alan.
You heard it here first. Free Jimmy buckets.
He doesn't
He's
even
doing
want to
everything
He doesn't even want to leave there, Alan.
Free Jimmy.
Whatever. Anyways, John Morant coming off of a super stellar week for sure. He had that nasty dunk. Also,
if we're talking about nasty dunks, we cannot miss Anthony Edwards. He took someone's soul, snatched it right out of their body. Ended his career. You will never hear from that guy again. Don't even know his name.
Pretty sure we know who it is, but
I don't.
Regardless, John Morant and Zion, the top 2 picks, from last year. Definitely watch them this week because they've been looking very great for their respective teams, and their teams are kind of getting up there now in contention for those last playoff.
And they're both young teams. They're going to be good for a long time as long as they can keep their core together, I feel like. You have a couple vets on there with Valanciunas and George Hill, Eric Bledsoe is a little older, but they're definitely young players. I think, that's the number 1 team in the Pelicans, not the youngest team in the NBA?
Yeah, we talked about that a little last week, too. Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. Joel Embiid, too. This is probably the last player I'd put up there to watch 100%. You can't talk about all these teams without talking about Joel Embiid and just this absolute MVP stellar season that he's put on so far.
Definitely.
So teams to watch for this week as we wrap up the show here. The Jazz, number 1 team. Watch the Lakers now without Anthony Davis for sure. The Nets, just been so hot recently. But the Blazers as well. Nobody's talking about them a lot. Dame time. And the way that the Blazers have come up recently, they've moved themselves up pretty highly up here.
Definitely.
So definitely watch them, and then watch the Grizzlies and John Morant because
exciting player to watch every time.
Every single night he steps out there, even without Jaren Jackson Jr. So this week I expect the Heat to falter a little bit more. I expect the Lakers to do pretty well without Anthony Davis. The Nets just to keep blazing it up. But other than that, what else do you see happening this week?
The Nets definitely going to be a great team. I feel like they may lose 1 game this week. They're looking hot after the end of this week. and James Harden's putting up great numbers. Also, he's being very consistent with the turnovers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's looking way better than he did on the Rockets. Sorry. No offense to all the Rockets, man. He was kind of screwing y'all.
Yeah, they just look terrible. They lost 7 straight.
Yeah. But definitely. Also, the Lakers, I want to see how they're going to play with that Anthony Davis. They're going to definitely look at, like, role players like Kyle Kuzma at this point, Alex Caruso, players like that to step up and carry some of that weight for Anthony Davis. But I don't know if they're going to be able to do it on the defensive side and rebounding because you have LeBron who can get it done, and you've seen the big blocks by LeBron. Everyone's seen those.
How about that Bam block? Did you see that Bam block on LeBron, the chase down last night?
Crazy.
Ooh.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that, you definitely should tap into that.
50 Shades of Tatum.
Oh, man.
Beautiful block. But other than that, guys, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Leave your thoughts down below on this week, the past week. Let us know what you expect coming forward for most of these teams. You know, I'm Dobby.
And I'm Alan. Free Jimmy Butler.
And this has been Taking the Charge.